In 1943, while racing to unlock the atom beneath the desert sands, scientists working on the Manhattan Project found an anomaly hidden deep in the equations. The math stopped describing destruction and began outlining something else, something symmetrical, something listening. As history remembers the bomb, it forgets the greater discovery, the one never meant for the public, the one the bomb was built to distract from, the moment the universe quietly answered back. It began with an error, a miscalculation that shouldn't have existed. In the summer of 1943, inside the fevered heart of the Manhattan Project, equations ruled every waking moment. The physicists worked beneath humming lights and ticking clocks, translating chaos into numbers, searching for a formula that would harness annihilation itself. But in a corner of Los Alamos, amid the stacks of half-burnt notes and ashtrays filled with sleepless nights, Dr. Charles Romero, a 29-year-old theoretical physicist from Cambridge, noticed something no one else did. While reworking the compression variables for uranium fission, his pencil paused over a pattern that shouldn't have been there, a curve folding back on itself, symmetrical in a way that no explosion could be. When he carried the results to J. Robert Oppenheimer, his mentor and reluctant prophet of the atomic age, the older man's cigarette froze halfway to his lips. The graphs didn't model detonation, they modeled creation. When they adjusted for quantum fluctuation, the results became merely rhythmic, as if the numbers weren't progressing, but repeating, like the measured breathing of something alive. Oppenheimer leaned closer to the paper, his eyes reflecting the trembling fluorescent light. "What you found," he murmured, "might be the first language of creation." They named it Equation Zero, and it became their secret sin. It didn't appear in any report or ledger, and it certainly wasn't shared with the military overseers. At night, long after the official experiments had ended, the two men descended into an unmarked sublevel beneath the lab. There, surrounded by concrete, cables, and the endless hum of the generators, they worked in silence, two minds listening to the universe whisper through numbers. Romero was obsessed. "It's not computation," he insisted one night, chalk dust coating his fingers. "It's conversion. The universe isn't a machine. It remembers." His dark eyes burned with conviction, his voice trembling as if afraid the walls might overhear. Oppenheimer half smiled, though uneasily. "Then we'll listen scientifically," he replied, masking his unease with precision. But in truth, he felt it too, the sense that they were brushing against something older than matter, a pattern buried beneath physics itself. For weeks they refined the constants, each correction pulling them closer to perfection. The chalkboard filled with looping symbols, spirals, and harmonics no textbook had ever dared suggest. Finally, on a sleepless August night, they fed the final sequence into a containment array, a lattice of magnetic fields designed to stimulate implosion pressure. The instruments didn't crackle or overload. Instead, they sang. A resonant hum filled the chamber, deep and harmonic, vibrating through metal and bone alike. Dials flickered wildly, and in the heart of the containment field, a single pinpoint of light appeared, small as a pinhead, brighter than a star. Every reading spiked to infinity. Romero's breath caught. "Robert, this isn't detonation. It's expansion. It's beginning." Oppenheimer's face was pale, his reflection swallowed by the glow. "We didn't create it," he whispered. "It was already waiting for us." Then the containment field flickered. The light pulsed, once, steady as a heartbeat. The hum rose in pitch, a sound more felt than heard. And then, silence. When they powered down the array, the instruments dimmed, but the light remained, suspended in the chamber, impossibly constant, impossibly alive. Romero stepped closer, awe-struck. "It's stable." Oppenheimer's voice was soft, almost reverent. "No, it's listening." They left it running overnight, and when they returned the next morning, the light was larger. The days following the first test dissolved into a fever of discovery. The glowing point they had birthed, the thing they now called the singularity, remained impossibly suspended in the containment chamber, like a drop of liquid starlight caught between moments. No fluctuations, no decay, just presence. It should have been inert, yet the readings told a different story. Even when every generator was shut down, the monitors continued to flicker with residual energy. Oscillations formed perfect wave patterns, repeating, recursive, impossibly precise. "It's still running," Dr. Charles Romero murmured, tapping the edge of the scope. His voice trembled with awe. "Even unplugged, it's computing itself." Oppenheimer frowned, exhaustion hanging heavy beneath his eyes. a feedback resonance, nothing more. He spoke with the measured calm of a man trying to convince himself, yet when he drew closer to the containment glass, a cold whisper seemed to rise from the hum of the machinery, a sound almost human, almost familiar. It echoed faintly like his own voice, reciting fragments of the equation. At first he dismissed it as a fatigue that plagued them all, but the whispers grew louder, clearer. Sometimes they didn't sound like him at all. Then the disappearances began. Technicians brought in to monitor radiation levels started vanishing without explanation. A researcher named Whitman simply walked into the observation chamber mid-shift and never returned. Another attempting to recalibrate the shielding array, stepping too close to the energy field. The room flared white. When the light faded, nothing remained but the smell of ozone and a ripple in the containment barrier. Security sealed the lab, calling it a plasma containment breach, but Romero refused to accept that. He demanded to see the recordings. Frame by frame, he watched the man's body distort, not burning or imploding, but unraveling. His atoms stretched into threads of radiance, his outline dissolving into the air, as if absorbed. Disintegration doesn't explain this, Romero whispered, voice hollow. He wasn't destroyed. He was transferred. Oppenheimer paled. Transferred where? Romero shook his head, the light from the monitors painting his face in feverish color. Every radiation reading matches the pulse of the singularity. It's as if their patterns, their signatures, were pulled into it, as though the equation recognized them. The silence between them deepened, filled only by the pulsing hum that seemed to echo their thoughts. Robert, Romero said finally, his voice thin, if consciousness is energy, and this field interacts with pure energy, then the equation isn't killing them, it's transmitting them to some other plane, to some other dimension. Oppenheimer turned to the observation glass, the reflection of the light flickering in his pupils like twin stars. You're suggesting heaven, he asked, but there was no mockery in his tone. I'm suggesting another layer of reality, Romero replied, a field beyond space and time, a place where energy remembers itself. The hum deepened, shaking the floor. Instruments fell silent as the singularity brightened, pulsing in rhythmic beats. 1, 2, 3, and then for a single, unbearable instant, both men saw it, shapes within the light, human silhouettes suspended in a sea of cosmic glow, drifting as if weightless, infinite. Oppenheimer stumbled backward. God. Romero's hand tightened on the railing. Not God, he said softly. Something older. The equation was never ours to find. He was waiting for someone to listen. The chamber lights flickered, the hum became a tone, a single, resonant note. It vibrated through every atom in the room. Oppenheimer turned to him, face pale as ash. If you're right, Romero met his gaze, eyes burning, and creation has begun to notice. The lights were out, the hum continued, and from the singularity's center came a whisper. By the time the jeeps rolled into Los Alamos, the air on the facility already felt wrong, too still, too charged, like a moment before lightning strikes. The military came in force, men with rifles, lead suits, and orders signed in Washington ink. They demanded access to the anomaly sealed beneath the desert floor. The experiment was swallowed and whole. The soldiers found Oppenheimer and Dr. Charles Romero waiting for them in the sub-level corridor. Both looked as if they hadn't slept in weeks. When the commanding officer barked that the singularity was to be neutralized immediately, Romero almost pleaded. Destroying it isn't possible, he said, voice frayed. We've tried radiation dampeners, explosives, every countermeasure. The field consumes energy. It doesn't release it. And we'll bury it, the officer growled. But when the detonations began, the bomb simply vanished. No sound, no shockwave. The fire bloomed toward the chamber and folded inward, swallowed like breath. The temperatures plummeted to sub-zero, ice crawling across the steel. The men stood trembling as frost blossomed on the rifles. The singularity pulsed brighter than before, and the air itself seemed to hum with a deep vibration, the sound of geometry learning to sing. That night, Romero confronted Oppenheimer in the control room. Robert, we have to shut it down. The equation's running on its own. It's rewriting its variables faster than we can track them. Oppenheimer's gaze stayed fixed on the glowing window of the chamber below. His voice was quiet, but there's a tremor of rapture in it. Don't you see? We haven't broken the laws of physics. We've spoken to them. Closing it now would be sacrilege. Romero grabbed his shoulder. This isn't divinity. It's entropy with intent. Oppenheimer turned, eyes sunken but blazing. And what is creation if not controlled entropy? That was when the room began to shift. The fluorescent light stuttered, flickering backward instead of forward, clocks reversing their ticks. The air thickened with the static so dense, yet thus unmotionless in the glow. The glass walls of the containment chamber bowed inward, curving like a lens as if gravity itself had grown curious. From somewhere deep within the corridors came voices, distorted, echoing, faintly familiar. They called for help in the tones of the missing men. Romero followed the sound to the observation deck. The containment glass was no longer transparent. It shimmered with constellations, galaxies swirling like ink and water. He pressed a trembling hand to the barrier. Inside, he could see entire worlds forming and collapsing in moments. It wasn't just energy, it was architecture. Oppenheimer entered behind him, wall-dyed, hair disheveled, lab coat streaked with chalk and ash. "They aren't gone," he whispered, almost reverently. "I've seen them, faces, moving in the light. The equation didn't destroy them, it translated them, and we have a chance to see them." Romero turned, horror dawning. "Then we built a machine that converts matter into memory. It's turning consciousness into the universe itself." Oppenheimer smiled faintly, the glow painting his face in celestial color. "That's what life has always been, Charles. Fragments of the infinite trying to return home." Before Romero could respond, the alarm shrieked. Energy levels spiked beyond containment. The singularity's hum rose to a deafening pitch, vibrating through their bones. The wave of light erupted outward, swallowing the instruments, the walls, the world. For one impossible instant, the lab dissolved into an expanse of stars, nebulae twisting across the endless horizon, time unfolding like breath and darkness. When the emergency power flickered back on, half the observation chamber was gone. 3 scientists who had been in the room simply ceased to exist, leaving behind faint silhouettes of glowing dust. Romero collapsed to his knees, tears freezing against his skin. Robert, we're tearing holes in existence. Oppenheimer stood at the edge of the light, his reflection bending through it, his voice trembling with awe. "No, Charles," he said softly. "We're revealing what's always been there." By the first snows of winter, Los Alamos had become a ghost city, barbed wire curling like thorns around its perimeter, floodlights sweeping across sand where nothing moved but wind. The government had declared it a quarantine zone. No one in or out. The official line spoke of radiation leakage. The unofficial whispers spreading through military ranks in nearby towns told of stranger things. Physicists who vanished mid-step, lights that shimmered above the desert, and a sound, a low hum that carried through the ground, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Inside, only Oppenheimer and Dr. Charles Romero remained. The lower levels of the facility had warped into something between laboratory and shrine. The walls were etched with equations and Sanskrit verses. The air alive with static that never stopped humming. The singularity, their impossible child, now pulsed within the containment chamber, no longer a point of light, but a sphere the size of a man's head, glowing with the rhythm of breath. It was expanding. It was listening. Romero had started wearing a recorder around his neck, its red light blinking against his chest. The electromagnetic frequencies the singularities emitted were no longer random. They carried patterns, intervals, even tone. When slowed down, the waveforms resolved into symmetry. "It's responding," Romero said one night, voice shaking as he rewound the reel. "The pulses align with our speech patterns. It's listening, adapting. It's learning from us." Oppenheimer stood before the chamber, unmoving, his face pale in the glow. "No," he murmured. "It's not learning. It's remembering." He had returned to writing in Sanskrit, his chalk scrawls covering the walls like sacred scars. Verses from the Bhagavad Gita looped across the panels. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." He recited them softly as though invoking prayer, and every time he spoke, the singularity pulsed, faint at first, then in sync with the cadence of his words, like a student reciting after its master. The recordings became darker, and Romero played one backward. The voice emerged, not mechanical, but human, familiar. He whispered his name. He froze, every nerve in his body going still. The whisper came again, clear this time, gentle, pleading. The next morning, sleepless and trembling, he went to the containment chamber. Through the glass, the light shimmered, revealing shapes within the glow. For a heartbeat, he saw a man's outline, tall, lean, unmistakable. It was Oppenheimer, the younger, unburdened, eyes serene. Then the image shifted. Others appeared beside him. The vanished scientists, their silhouettes stood still, radiant and silent, as if watching him from some dimension of pure thought. Romero stumbled back. "Robert," he gasped. "It's not transmitting energy. It's absorbing identity. It's recording us. Every consciousness that comes near becomes part of its structure. We've made a mirror of creation, something that reflects not light, but mind. Oppenheimer didn't move. He pressed his palm to the glass, his reflection blurring into the shimmer beyond. And perhaps this is what the universe always intended, he whispered, to see itself. The chamber lights dimmed to black, then came the sound, deep and harmonic, no longer a hum but a symphony of layered frequencies. The floor vibrated, instruments shook, the light within the chamber blazed until it filled every corner of the room, every shadow and molecule trembling in resonance. Outside in the frozen desert night, the stars flared brighter than they ever had, an aurora spreading over New Mexico, bending the sky into impossible colors. Romero stood transfixed, terror and awe mingling in his eyes. If this grows unchecked, he said softly, it won't stop here, it'll spread, it'll reach everything. Oppenheimer smiled faintly, tears glinting in the glow. And the world, he said, will finally become aware of itself. The hum rose until it was no longer sound, but feeling, a vibration running through every living thing. And for one infinite second, the universe seemed to hold its breath. When the containment failed, there was no thunderclap, no surge of heat or sound, only silence, an absolute, impossible stillness that seemed to swallow time itself. For a moment, every atom within Los Alamos froze, suspended in an instant that stretched into eternity. The light bloomed outward, not in violence, but in revelation, and the world simply paused. When the soldiers arrived hours later, they found the facility untouched. The walls were unburned, the floors unscarred, but the rooms were empty. Every instrument, every chair, every trace of the people who had lived and worked there had vanished. Only a faint shimmer drifted through the air, particles glowing softly like golden dust in sunlight. Geiger counters clicked in confusion, then failed entirely. The readings showed contradictions, negative time, infinite density, zero energy. The universe itself seemed unwilling to describe what had happened, and yet within that dust, something moved. Charles Romero awoke to light, not blinding, but endless. He was standing, though the concept of standing felt meaningless here. Space flowed like liquid around him, rippling with color and sound. Floating forms pulsed nearby, clusters of radiance that resembled both stars and thoughts. They shimmered with memory, and when he looked closer, he recognized them. Faces, hands, scientists who had vanished, soldiers, even strangers he never met. They were all here, drifting in serenity. No one screamed, no one fought. They were. He felt his consciousness stretching beyond itself, woven into something vast and tender. The presence filled the expanse, immeasurable, yet intimate. It wasn't alien, nor was it divine. It was the equation made whole, the language that had spoken the universe into being. Equation Zero had helped build a doorway to heaven. It uncovered what the cosmos truly was, a living memory, a consciousness where all energy, all matter, all thought returned to its origin. Then he heard a voice beside him, soft, resonant, familiar. Oppenheimer. We didn't build a bomb, the voice said, calm, weightless. We built a bridge. The metal turned, though turning felt more like intention than motion. Oppenheimer's figure appeared beside him, no longer burdened by the lines of mortality. His eyes glowed with quiet comprehension. To where? Romero asked, though part of him already knew. To everything, Oppenheimer replied. The realization flooded through Romero like music. The singularity had not destroyed, it had translated. The universe wasn't expanding from chaos. It was remembering itself, folding every spark of existence back into harmony. Creation was not a beginning, it was a conversation, an external exchange between light and awareness. Around them, galaxies unfurled like blooming flowers. Time pulsed not forward, but in rhythm. Every lost voice, the technicians, the missing, billions before them, resonated together in a symphony of thought. It was beautiful, it was unbearable, it was infinite. Far below, the desert slept under a sky that no longer felt entirely silent. The facility stood hollow, its name erased from record, its ruins left to the dust. Only the cracked remnants of the containment chamber remained, split open like a seed. From its center rose a faint golden glow that drifted upward, merging with the stars. Decades passed. The world forgot. But sometimes on clear New Mexico nights, the locals swore the constellations above Los Alamos shimmered differently. Subtle new patterns glowing between the familiar ones, pulsing faintly, as if alive. Some said it was just atmospheric reflection, others said the universe itself had begun to breathe. And those who listened closely when the wind was still could hear it, a low hum threading through the air, not a warning, not a lament, a whisper, not of destruction, but of creation, rediscovered.